Just talking musicals with you. Hello, I'm Lesley Ann Knight and welcome to Just Talking Musicals and this special three-part interview with Tom Klenerman, one of the first young actors ever to play the role of Charlie Bucket in the West End production of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory back in 2013. As you've probably gathered by now, I love a good story. So before I introduce you to Tom, here's a little background as to how the first story ever came about. On the 19th of September 1940, a 24-year-old RAF fighter pilot on a routine mission from Egypt to Libya was forced to make an emergency landing in the desert after he found himself in a rather unfortunate position. With uncertain landing coordinates and night drawing on, he took the decision to land his ageing Gloucester Gladiator plane in the desert before he completely ran out of fuel. All went well until the undercarriage of his aircraft struck a boulder on landing, causing the plane to crash and burst into flames. Acting fighter pilot Roald Dahl managed to drag himself away from his burning plane, just narrowly missing the frantic machine gun fire that was exploding from the guns on his biplane, and he escaped with a smashed nose, burns, temporary blindness, and a severe concussion from a bash to his head. Fortunately, the young pilot was rescued later that evening, but it was that mighty blow to his head that Roald Dahl would forever after attribute to the pivotal moment which stirred up in him his desire for writing. Over the course of his career, Roald Dahl not only wrote fiction and non-fiction for both adults and children, he also wrote screenplays and plays, and with his children's books he created colourful, fantastical worlds and never held back for the sake of his rather more squeamish readers. One of his most popular stories was first published in 1964 about a little boy called Charlie Bucket. And now, some 55 years since it first hit the bookshops, it's been estimated that the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory has sold over 20 million copies worldwide and been translated into no less than 55 languages. So, what's it all about? It's the story of a little lad called Charlie Bucket who loves chocolate and lives tantalisingly close to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. He and his family have nothing in the world and live in a rickety shack, but Charlie is a born optimist who makes the most of every little thing he has. And then one day he wins one of 5 precious golden tickets to the weird and wonderful Wonka chocolate factory. It's the chance of a lifetime to feast on the sweets he's always dreamed of. But beyond the gates, astonishment awaits, as down the sugary corridors and amongst the incredible edible delights, the 5 lucky winners discover that not everything is as sweet as it seems. Roald Dahl books have always held a special charm for young children, and multi-award-winning director Sam Mendes was no exception to this rule as he was growing up, as he confessed in an interview in 2013, naming it as one of his favourite childhood books. And it was a story he was convinced would make a wonderful musical show. So, a mere 12 weeks after he'd finished filming Skyfall, one of the most highly acclaimed James Bond films ever, Sam Mendes then had to turn his attention full force to a musical he had been planning and working on for 5 years. In bringing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to the stage, there were over 50 drafts written of the musical over the course of 5 years. Several attempts at portraying Willy Wonka's Oompa Loompas, first as puppets, then as children. Not to mention the almost overwhelming challenge of squeezing Willy Wonka's factory with its chocolate river, edible grass meadow, and enormous glass pipes with their never-ending sucking sound onto an unsuspecting West End stage. But it all finally came together in one big theatrical extravaganza which opened in London's West End at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane on the 25th of June 2013, with music by Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman, script by David Gregg, and starring actor Douglas Hodge as Willy Wonka. But of course, Willy Wonka isn't the only star in the show. After all, it's not called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for nothing. It took 9 months and hundreds of auditions to find the children for the show. and the producers finally chose 4 boys to play the character of Charlie. They were Jack Costello, Tom Klenerman, Isaac Roos, and Louis Sook. At the end of 2013, I started teaching a rather special young lad who, after starring in this new West End show and performing in front of royalty at the Royal Variety Performance that year, then came to me for singing lessons. Most people I meet have starring in a West End or Broadway show as their lifetime goal, but Tom Klenerman had already achieved these dizzying heights at the tender age of 11. Here's our chat from when we met up a short while ago to talk about what it's like to be a child actor working on the West End stage and how on earth you get there. Oh, and P.S. As it's now 6 years later and 2019, you'll doubtless notice Tom is now considerably older and his voice is a lot deeper. So in June 2013, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory opened at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, and amongst the leading characters was a certain young Tom Klenerman. So fantastic. Welcome to you, Tom, and thank you for coming here today.
Thank you, Lesley.
So you were in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. How old were you?
Well, I started doing the auditions when I was 10, and then I was 11 for most of it, and I left when I was 12. So,
wow. So you were 10 when it started?
I was 10 when the audition started, yeah.
Wow.
I got it just after my 11th birthday, and then I did my last performance something like a few days after I turned 12, I think.
So had you always done this sort of thing when you were little? Had you been in a big show before?
No, this was my first actual professional thing that I'd done. Beforehand, I'd done just a lot of school plays,
okay,
and that had been pretty good. I hadn't really thought about doing any major acting, and then I was just very lucky to be in the right place at the right time.
So where was the right place at the right time? That's what people want to know.
Well, at my school, they were holding auditions,
yeah,
and I think they just came around to just look for kids, and so I went along to these auditions.
Did you know, had they announced it at school there's going to be an audition for a musical?
To be honest, I can't remember.
I can't remember.
But I knew they were going on. I think I'd been asked to show one of the people round who was doing the auditions.
Yeah.
And then we sat down in the hall, me and this other kid, and we just talked. We didn't do any, script reading. And then I got asked to go to another audition in London. So I went to that audition.
So did you think, oh, this is going well?
Well, to be honest, I hadn't done anything professional, so I wasn't really sure what to expect.
So what did an audition consist of at that point? Can you remember?
Yes. So at that point, we still weren't doing script work. We had to prepare a song, and we had to prepare a kind of monologue thing.
Yeah.
I think I did some poetry.
Yeah.
And then after that, I got shortlisted to come back later, and then shortlisted altogether. But because I hadn't done any professional acting before, that involved basically them teaching me everything I needed to know about dancing and singing. So I spent about 6 months, the whole of my summer holidays, training for dancing and singing and acting and how to act.
And who did you do that with?
I can't remember their names, but
it was with the production company.
It was with the production company.
Yeah.
It was with one of their directors, who I think is now doing Book of Mormon, taught me the singing.
Yeah.
And then just a choreographer taught me how to dance.
Yeah.
And then I went back to do into the audition process to do a final audition.
Yeah.
In which they sort of saw my progress and what I'd learnt, and then could judge on that whether I was ready for it.
But going back, right back to the beginning, if you can remember it, when they came to your school and they were looking around, because you were probably just a bit curious at the beginning, weren't you?
Yeah, I think so.
But how did you, for somebody who's trying to get into musicals, somebody who's say 10 or 11 or 12, thinking, I'd like to do that, why don't they come to my school? What do you walk in the room with? What did you just go in with a song that you half knew, or as you say, a piece of poetry? Did you just pick something you knew? For
the actual auditions, yeah, I just picked something I knew.
Yeah.
I think I didn't really think too much about it, to be honest. I was just treating it as like a
bit of a laugh.
Well, I wasn't especially serious about it. I wasn't really sure what I was expecting. So I think I just did something that was very natural to me. I think I did the song from The Scarecrow and the Wizard of Oz, I think was the song I did.
Is that If I Only Had a Brain?
If I Only Had a Brain, yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
I'm not really sure why I chose that, but I did. And then I can't remember what the poem was. But I suppose the best thing is to just, like, they casted me based on the fact that I was what they thought Charlie would be like. You know, someone who was quite insecure, quite quiet, sat at the back of the room, quite shy, hopefully quite polite. And then, so they casted me based on my personality being like that they wanted for Charlie. So I suppose the main thing to do if you're looking to be a part is just to do something that's very true of you and not try to make yourself into a kind of image of someone else.
Did you know what you were auditioning for?
No, to be honest, I just went in.
So they didn't say it's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Well, I think I knew it was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but I didn't really know that much. I hadn't really prepared massively for it. Yeah.
I was just lucky. Chocolate.
Yeah.
There wasn't just one audition, was there? They liked you and then they called you back?
Yes. So during the first audition, they held like quite a mass thing. So there were quite a few of us in there. We did our songs and then we did our monologues. And then the MD asked me to repeat my song, and he didn't ask anyone else to do that. And I was thought I'd messed up, but apparently I hadn't. Because I hadn't really done any singing before and I didn't think I was very good. So then they called maybe 5 of us back, and we worked on one of the songs from the show. Forgotten the name of the song, but we worked on one of the songs from the show, and then after that there was a second audition which I went to, which I think was at the Coliseum, and then at the end of that, Sam Mendes came to the end of that rehearsal to have a look at us. There were about 10 of us, I suppose. And then from that, he shortlisted me. But because of I then went to a further audition where they asked me to do a lot of dancing. And it became very apparent that I had absolutely zero drama and dancing training before. And so they then took me into a shortlisted group with a specific MD and a specific choreographer, from which they taught me how to sing and dance and really prepared me for the stage.
Right, that's it for today. A huge thank you to the production team, Katie Ridout. And join us again next time to find out more stories from wonderful Tom as he shares with us his extraordinary experiences of life on stage at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane. You can find Just Talking Musicals on Facebook, and we're lurking on Twitter as well under the name of @Night&Ridout. Oh, and don't forget to click the subscribe button for each new episode alert so you can bag the best front row seats for each new show. See you here again very soon for part 2 of our special Just Talking Musicals interview with Tom Klenerman. Just Talking Musicals with you. Doubtless. It'll do.